the Nintendo Switch 2 was officially unveiled and revealed while we were taking a break between episodes. And there was a bunch of contrasting news outlets coming out. First, it was, the console price has stayed the same across the board, but at first it was games are going to be $80. Then it was certain games going to be $80. Then it was certain games going to be $90. And it comes to find out that all of those different news outlets, to some degree, were right, confusingly enough. Right. So you have games like Mario Kart World, which are going to retail at $80. Then games like Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is $70. And then if you want Breath of the Wild, including the DLC, it's going to be $90. So with the console being $450, the controller now having a literally pay-to-use camera, and just everything that has been kind of laid out with the Nintendo Switch 2. What were your guys' thoughts? Well, first, before we get into all the pricing, what were your guys' thoughts on the console specs? The game is revealed. Was there anything that like surprised you in a good way?
I mean, it's a PS4.
But it's a PS4 in your hands.
Okay.
We haven't had that before.
Okay.
I mean,
but there's only but then to get the full resolution, you need to sit down at your house.
Yeah, but that's always been the case with Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, but then as I said, it's a PS4.
Mm.
The PS4. As Thanos would say, all that for a drop of blood.
So there's nothing about it that you liked?
I mean, I like the fact that, the Bloodborne era of Pokemon is going to be available. Pokemon Coliseum and XD.
For a price.
Of course. Of course. But other than that, bro, I mean, yeah, it's about time for another system, but I guess, like the mystery hype just kind of died down of like, okay, so how far are they going to actually go in terms of specs? So, I mean, it's a PS4, which is not bad. I mean, because to be honest, we haven't really seen a huge graphic, hardware jump, even with the system that we have now. If you're being brutally honest,
yeah, definitely.
Just faster loading times.
Yeah,
40% extra graphic overhaul, but other than that, it's a PS4. Congratulations for them.
A pretty pricey PS4 if you think about it, in that aspect.
Yeah, so let's see how far that brand loyalty goes.
Yeah. That's right. Let me get your thoughts on it in terms of the things that you liked. We'll get the things that we liked out the way first with the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal.
See. Yeah, I was actually impressed with the power, supporting up to 120 frames. That's what I wanted. I wanted 60 frames per second. So finding out it's up to 120, depending on the developers. I'm expecting Nintendo's to be high res, 60 frames per second. That's what I expect. It should be able to, since a lot of the games aren't visually demanding. I like the improvement on the Switch. The design is fine. The design is fine. The specs are fine. It's a great handheld, slightly bigger screen. The games are compatible to a fault. Overall, the price, I was expecting that. I kind of made the predictions last part, if you remember, around the price.
I was expecting a little bit lower, but
yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So because if they're gonna be able to do that for that price, would be fine. It's actually it's actually on par with the Steam Deck as far as power. I think it's great. I like it so far. I'm satisfied with what I wanted the Switch 2 to be, but if I'm allowed to, the drawbacks. I felt like they shot it in the foot. They shot themselves in the foot with the name. Should have called it the Super Nintendo Switch.
They should have. Honestly,
would have been that would have jumped over the leap of should I? But it's a Super Nintendo Switch.
Yep. And we'll be releasing a limited edition console that has the Super Nintendo outlook on it or whatever.
I wish the colors were back to Frieza colors. You feel me? They should have went with the Frieza final form colors, but again, I do feel like the black is to show the buyers that, yo, we take third party serious, guys. So go ahead and come. It has that more of a sleek, defining look. I feel like that's what they were going for, like that Nintendo Revolution, the code name that the Wii had, which
I
back in
mean,
those days.
which they predicted it right. It was a revolution.
Y-
If you, I mean,
Yeah,
if you really want to be like giving respect to Nintendo, a lot of companies copy Nintendo. Like
yeah,
Sony and Xbox don't innovate the way, or should I say, innovate as often as
yeah,
Nintendo does. The
yeah.
Kinect and the PlayStation Move did not exist before the Wii. You know what I'm
No, it did
saying? Like
not.
it's like
Yeah,
they Nintendo definitely has a lot of, whether these companies admit it or not, they look at Nintendo like dad. Even when it comes
yeah,
to
yeah.
hardware innovation.
So those were the takeaways. Also, the games not actually being on the cartridge anymore, but you're still charging me how much for the actual cartridge if the game's on the cartridge. That was a little infuriating. The game prices for games that I already own, I have to pay for an upgrade for games that I already
Yeah.
own.
Not for all of them, but for
DLC,
most of them, yes.
but for most of them, okay. The color scheme, I already mentioned that. The price, you know, I'm not mad at. I accept it. But for the games, what advantages do I have buying a cartridge if it's still gonna be viewed
Lock behind
the
digital wall.
same, locked behind a digital wall?
Well, they did say with the game key, you still have the, I guess, perks of a physical cartridge in sense of like, let's say I buy a game with the digital key, I can lend it to you or Tim to play. Whereas if I bought it digitally, obviously I can't do that.
You could have done both. I won't buy that. You could have did both. You
I
could have
mean,
did
of
to the part
course,
where I have the physical and because I have the physical, I could choose to lend it out to whoever, but it's limited because
right? But I mean,
which
the truth of that is what I've been saying about all these consoles and where we're heading. Like they're trying to not so subtly get places like GameStop and Best Buy out the paint. We want to have a 1-to-1 with our consumer, and we direct and determine what that price is. I don't want to hear about no clearance sales, no pre-owned price, none of that.
and why not sell it directly?
That's what they're doing.
But
Yeah.
with the physical.
No, because that opens the chance of a resale market. I don't want you to resell it.
Yeah.
I want Antonius to buy for full price, S Rank to buy for full price, and Mikhail to buy for full price. That's what I want. No, we're gonna allow friend sharing, but we're not really gonna, because of course you got to put the message and the medicine of like this is where we're heading. We can't go full throttle there yet because we know people will retaliate. But that this is what we're
It
pushing for.
it's I mean, if you're gonna only sell to John Billy with the Lamborghini, if that's who you want your market to be, then by all means continue. Eventually, by all means continue.
Yeah.
Um I for me, I just think the the prices and also the new Don Matrick, please stand up. Please stand up. Please stand up. It's
Same
just
message, same messenger, pretty much.
it's to me it's out of control, man. So
Yeah.
um
I'd say like
th-
before we really start dunking on like I guess like the truth behind it. Like my positives are, I think for a system that doesn't have an OLED screen, I still think it's very pretty.
yeah,
I think what they're able to do with the HDR, like it looks great. Like the 1080p on the go is gonna look really good in your hands.
plus.
It's a system like you said, S rank, like on a specs level. I have really nothing to say. Like Tim said, it is a PS4, but that's probably in my mind that was the best we could hope for. Like there was no way they're gonna put an SSD into a Nintendo Switch. That just wasn't gonna happen. So I'm like, if I can get a PS4/PS4 Pro graphical fidelity on the go, I can't say anything system wise. And I would have hoped for 400, but 450 ain't really that much of a bump up, if we're being honest. So I'm like, this still kind of falls in line of what I kind of expected. Would have liked 400, but I understand. The thing is, though, is like that's kind of where my compliments stop. I'm like, the system is cool, price is understandable, but when you start nickel and dime, because I got to pay for Nintendo Switch Online, then I got to pay to use your camera, then I got to pay to buy your games that you're now marking up. And I think what they didn't register or think about is like, we know the kind of like absolutes with each company, like, oh, Sony's going to do this, Microsoft's going to do this, and Nintendo's going to do that. And one thing that all gamers know about Nintendo is that Nintendo rarely lowers their prices on anything. You could go buy Super Smash Bros. Ultimate tomorrow and it will still cost you $60 as if it came out yesterday. So you have these games where it's like, oh, you know, it's $80 now, but it might come down. It's like, have you ever played a Nintendo game before? It's never coming down.
You know, Zelda was $60 for the 64, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just so you know, I remember going to Toys R Us, seeing the golden cartridge, the Ocarina of Time, and I saw $60.
Yeah, so it's like well documented that from the Super Nintendo era to about the PlayStation Nintendo 64 era, games were very expensive. Games were very, very expensive. Adjusted for inflation, you were paying a lot of money to get a game. Which explains why it's like your allowance was gonna cut it. Like we got maybe 2 games a year, if that. Share the controller. Good luck getting a memory card.
Share that. That controller was like how much?
Yeah, bro. I mean, they're not cheaper now.
Hefty price, though.
Yeah, the price of a game now. So it ain't nothing changed with the controller prices. I think the thing is that Nintendo, kind of what you said earlier, they've kind of started to pivot the market back to gaming being a luxury hobby. Before it used to be a pricey hobby, right? A console's expensive, games aren't the cheapest, but you know most people can afford it. Now I feel like Nintendo has opened the door for like this is only for, like you said, Jory, the Lamborghini driving, higher earning income people. This is not for little Timmy and little Tammy and their family. They can't afford it. The console, the controllers, the games, like you start thinking about what you would need to have like a well-rounded Nintendo Switch experience, and you're probably going to spend at least $600 to start. And then to find out that all of these prices were set up this way pre-tariff, and now it might be even higher. It's like, fam, what did you guys think was going to happen when you unveiled this? Did you think it was going to be welcome with open arms because the Nintendo Switch was so successful? Like, do we not remember what happened with the Wii and to the Wii U transition? Like, I know you guys remember. That's why you call it the Switch 2, because you wanted to play it as safe as possible. But it wasn't so much the naming convention. It was also the way things changed going to that platform. So that's kind of where my whole thing of like, like it's one like I'll always say like I'm all for people like knowing their worth, right? You can't put a price on what you feel like you're worth, but I also feel like the market decides how much that applies. So you can put your feet on the table, right? But if I'm like I'm gonna just like I don't want to participate, now what do you do? Right? I'm like, here's my final selling price. Oh, okay, well then I'm not buying it. Wait. No, I'm just not gonna buy it. Like I'll become the nostalgia gamer, the throwback gamer, the remember when gamer, if that's the case, if that's what y'all gonna charge.
Jeez.
And that's what's becoming, man. Like, a hobby is literally turning into something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's turning into something else. I mean, but it's been that way for a while, but then now we're starting to really see the heights of it because look now, people are making their whole careers around their streams now.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube content, TikTok content, all these type of things. What are the specs of my PC? What custom decals do I have? Or promo codes through their names, reaction videos. And then, of course, in this economic world, it's the pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Things are changing for the slightest thing. And it kind of really makes you think like, but then where does it stop?
I don't know.
Where does it stop? Because you want us to enjoy these things, but because you keep saying like, oh, things going up because, the scaling of things is going up. But then that goes back to our discussion about AA games. Well, if that's the case, bro, like give us some good AA games that we could just enjoy, because there are some ones that have good longevity to it. Because if you're telling me all these AAA titles cost you this long and take this long, it's like, bro, that's an investment.
Yeah.
And then of course you're not going to give me the full thing.
Right. You're gonna nickel and dime me.
You're gonna hide the remainder of the 5 years of the game behind multiple season passes. Because back in the day, even one was kind of crazy, but now you got multiple. And when you tell me you're a game company that you have multiple season passes that almost cost like $50 a piece, I mean, you tell me, so basically this full game package is about to cost me like roughly probably like around $200, $300.
Yeah, easily.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean I think that's kind of like the underlying thing that like even other content creators that I've watched over the past 2 weeks, I haven't really heard, even the Nintendo centered content creators, I haven't heard them really say anything too positive about this rollout. Of like the underlying thing is like, yo, Nintendo is tripping, and if they tripping, you know what I'm saying? Like
you got Reggie Fils-Aimé coming from the bleachers like a WWF SmackDown interruption promo, saying, "Yo, what are you doing?"
Yeah, you're the Nintendo Switch tech demo. You're charging $10 for that. This is how you use the Switch 2 for a price,
and it ain't even better than the Sony one. Like Sony outdid y'all.
Right? Sony gave us a video game, like a video game
Yeah.
for the free. So like to me, I'm like, it's such a bittersweet feeling because, sometimes like I'll listen back to our old pods to try to see if I can remember some of the things we covered before, and I was like, it's crazy because the last time we spoke about Nintendo, they actually addressed a lot of the things that we brought up as concerns of like, yo, where's your Donkey Kong IP? And like you basically gave us Donkey Kong Mario Odyssey with this Donkey Kong Bonanza, but it's such a sour taste of like
$80.
Yeah. We wanted more Kirby. Oh, Kirby's getting DLC and a new game, but $80. It's that the meme of not like this, all over again.
With all this,
yeah. So I guess my question for you guys is like, we always know that there is definitely some level of disconnect, even though consumers generally have gotten smarter and wiser to game consumption habits, but there is still a disconnect between online discourse and what people actually say with their wallets. Considering that the Switch has sold as much as it has, do you guys see the Switch 2 still being a success for Nintendo?
I mean, at this point, I would say yeah, because you could tell like there's just a certain point, especially after the last few Nintendo Directs, that people are just, they're just desiring anything. Desiring anything that's new, anything that's hip, anything that's new. Because even like what we said, bro, is content creation drives so much. Word of mouth about all these properties is what drives attention and interest now. And, it's almost like how when we were talking about Daima, it's like aesthetic over substance. It's like so many things are just, oh yeah, I want it. Like that impulsive consumption. Like you just want it just because.
FOMO? You think so?
I think FOMO does have a big. I think it does play a big part.
It's a very adult, economic version of FOMO.
Yeah,
it really is, and that's what's going to really drive a lot of it, man. Because of course, they are going to release things that they know people would want for sure, and that's how Nintendo beats them. Or I would say everybody.
Yeah,
but
they're really good at it.
Yeah.
No, I think
once I saw them like Switch edition, Switch 2 edition, enhanced editions, I was like, oh, bro, here we go.
That's how it goes. Yeah, that's how it starts. And the thing that's interesting, like, not to get serious, but to kind of get serious for like half a second, like, I think the millennials on down have had FOMO the worst, right? Like, I think one of the realities of adulthood is like you go into your adult life realizing that it's not quite what you imagined. But we have gone through so many drastic changes during our youth that like we're way off the mark of what we thought adult life was going to be. Like what I saw my parents living as their adult life isn't even possible anymore nowadays. So like the FOMO of like, in my adult brain, of course, when you're a kid, you're like, man, I can't wait till I have my own money so I can buy all the video games I want. And now I'm like, I'm an adult and I can't buy any of the games that I want because it's too expensive. So there is that kind of underlying thing of like, I don't want to be that person that is still unable to. It still does not have, still lacks in, in the things that I want for myself. Of course, granted, like responsibility kind of kicks in on that aspect, but as we have seen, responsibility is not usually the priority of most in this situation. But I don't know. I think to me, I think the tariffs will probably be the biggest determining factor. Like I think if the Switch 2 jumps up to like $600 because of the tariff, I don't think it does as well out the gate, personally.
I don't think there's no charge on the electronics.
It changes almost daily. Because from what little I know, and again, please somebody don't come in the comments for being, uneducated economics or whatever. From what I understand, initially it was like obviously US and China are going back and forth with who can the tariff off basically between the two places.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially it's like anything, even if it was initially manufactured over there, is getting taxed. So even if you manufactured it, shipped it somewhere else, and then brought it over, we're still taxing at the point of origin. So it's kind of like it remains to be seen. I know like cell phones is kind of put in there too. Like cell phones are kind of exempt or whatever the case may be, but that news seems to change every other day. So that's the other part of like I don't know. Once the smoke clears, right? Because I think the console releases June 5th. Who knows what they're gonna say? Who knows? Like maybe America's exempt, but the UK now has to pay $800 for a Switch, or if you want to get it in Australia, it's $1,000. Like that's a very real reality of, people always say like, oh, keep your politics out of my gaming. It's like, well, politics affects everything. And I'm not saying that this then says like, oh, you need to pick a political side, but like, that's just the reality of things. The policies and practices have now crept into your entertainment.
Man, the politics feel like they're about to be on my doorstep any day.
Who are you with?
Not only that, you're gonna hear a foreign accent, and after that, he goes, I was like, yo, is this the Empire? Is this really happening to Tatooine?
Family,
again?
family.
Man, but if you really do understand the story that George Lucas was telling in Star Wars, certainly red, white, and blue is the Empire.
Prophet Lucas, Prophecy Lucas. Yeah, I just, I don't know. It's again, like I feel ultimately it's a bittersweet thing for me when it comes to Nintendo. I'm glad that they obviously still have their finger on the pulse in terms of what people wanted from them first party wise. I think that pricing is going to be where they'll live and die. Like, cool, Final Fantasy VII Remake is coming to the Switch too, but why am I paying full price for it on your console? The game is 5 years old. Like, just because I'm now able to play it on the Nintendo Switch doesn't mean I want to play new game prices. It's not a new game.
And it's how much on the Steam Deck?
Significantly cheaper.
Okay. That's another thing, right? I have options.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to act like this, Nintendo, I'm gonna get my Steam Deck and I'm gonna play games on my Steam Deck. And ain't a thing you could do about it.
Yeah.
It's not a thing you could do about it.
Yeah. And if you really start thinking about, the E word.
Yeah.
Rhymes a regulator, then the world is truly your oyster.
Yeah. The world is yours and everything in it, Chico. And everything in it, Chico. I would say so. Right. It's like, nah. I mean, yeah, they gonna have to figure something out. But Nintendo seems like they don't want to budge. But I really think this is the first time we're gonna see a tables and ladders match with Nintendo versus the public. I mean, who's gonna just drop 80 like that? Like,
I don't know.
It's either I buy shoes, clothes, meal for the week,
right?
Or milk. I mean, like, or bread and butter. I said it already, but it's either those things I buy, man, and you just gaming will be it'll just be the collapse again because it's just not affordable, so nobody's playing it. Everybody's gonna go straight to free to play games and cell phone games.
Yeah, and or like I said, retro gaming.
Retro gaming. If you got an iPhone 16, you're good. You know, 8 gigs of RAM. There's no game that's gonna demand that unless it's Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You in the And you get the next, if they drop the next the iPhone Ultra Z Max 5, you know what I'm saying?
With a
With
couple of
facial
16
scanning,
gigs. Yeah.
you know, and it can scan the back of your head. And now developers is using the iPhones, and it has 16 gigs now. I
Yeah.
can talk to my SA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah.
Like what and then the touch response is effortless touch response now, some new technology that they're selling to you. What is effortless touch response? You can actually move your fingers and the camera will catch it. Now, if you touch, you got even quicker response time, a millisecond faster than a push button controller.
Hmm.
We've reached the pinnacle, ladies and gentlemen. Yes,
The
it's a
phone has
wrap.
solved input lag. Oh,
It's
well.
a wrap. It's a
Well.
wrap. Saran.
Yeah. No, it's again, June 5th will say a lot. I think that will be the telltale sign of, again, because again, the internet, if you look at the internet, right? If the internet tells it Assassin's Creed Shadows were doomed for failure, the internet tells it, like there's all these things that like are kind of spoken as absolutes. Then when you start looking at the real world applications, like it's not quite true. It's just a lot of people with a platform talking. But I feel
Hmm.
like with this in particular, it's like, yeah, little Timmy's mom may not be as into the know as we are, but she's going to ask someone that she knows in her family who's in the know, and they're going to tell them, hey, tell little Timmy to get comfortable with that Switch 1 because the Switch 2 is going to beat you all over the head. Because
And
he's going to
yeah,
want to play
if
online with his friends. He's going to want, the newest games. And everything we have this, and this for a price, for a subscription fee. Like Tim said earlier, the GameCube era of Pokemon is here for a price. Like it's all going to cost you something.
hey, and if you want to, hey, listen, you might not be able to buy our Switch 2. We're still supporting the Switch 1. Go ahead and get that, you peasant.
Yeah, I told you, man. The broke boys were silent, brokey.
Yeah, like
you poor.
yeah, you cur. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
It feels like a slur, like you poor person. Whoa.
what do you identify?
Right.
No, you know what I'm saying? What do you identify as?
BRO.
Yeah, yeah.